is the first day of our 2021 Winter Growth Summit. And we have 9 global growth sessions for you over the next 3 days. Each of these sessions will give you some new, I would say, perspectives and potentially some new lessons to apply in terms of the things that you are working on from a growth perspective in your startups. And I am super excited that we have a returnee, a Growth Summit alumnus. Mike King and his team from iPullRank, Colt and John, are here with us today to give us a very interesting, and I'm very curious to see what this presentation looks like, about the rise of visual and how visual content is impacting e-commerce and SEO. So without further ado, I would like to now pass the presentation over to our friends at iPullRank, Mike, Colt, and John.
We might have gotten some wires crossed because that's not the title that I have.
Okay,
so we're giving
enough.
a totally different presentation here today. So we got a surprise one for you.
Excellent.
We're going to be talking about the $1 Million SEO Playbook, sort of what the life cycle of SEO looks like. But first, let us introduce ourselves. Mike, you want to take it away?
Hey, I'm Mike King, founder and managing director here at iPullRank. And like TR said, I also spoke with this group last year. So very excited to be back. Over to you, John.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Mertz. I'm director of software engineering here at iPullRank. I'm excited to be here and kind of walk through all these different fun, interesting SEO topics.
And my name is Colt Sleva. I'm SEO engineer at iPullRank, and I will be your primary presenter today. So as we go through, feel free to ask questions. We're going to explore various SEO topics through the presentation. Here, as you can tell by this cute couple exploring the mountains. So feel free to drop any sort of commentary that you have in the chat. We're going to try to watch that as best as we can. So we all want traffic. And it's not necessarily about cheating Google. And we can't just sort of set it and forget it. We have to put the work in, and this is a recurring cycle that we see over and over. So what if we had just sort of the most money we could possibly throw at an SEO budget? What if we had $1 million to create the ultimate organic traffic mousetrap? So we have the budget. Now, where would we spend it for the best ROI? What would that project look like? So first, let's take a look at the costs behind SEO. So how much does search really cost? Well, the search engines go through 3 basic steps. They're going to crawl your site, they're going to index it and save it to their databases, and then they're going to serve those results in their search engine result pages and rank them. And that web crawling process costs time and money. The indexing and storage costs time and money. And then the ranking costs a lot of money because it's a competition. And so we are all really just throwing money at each other to sort of win the SERPs. So through this process, we also have to emulate crawling and indexing and ranking. And so we're all trying to build our own sort of version of Google's black box. And so there's a lot of money flying around through this process. So sometimes it's not necessarily cheap. So what do we do as SEOs? We take the unstructured format of a website, the raw content, and try to provide structure for search engines. So we create content that people are searching for based on our research. We keep websites as clean as possible because we're more like custodians of the internet. We're trying to push content around, keep it clean. And then probably most importantly, we get you traffic for growth. So these skills are really a mixture of technical, editorial, and business, and that can be rare, which is expensive. So investing in SEO, you have to build a site that can be crawled, indexed, and ranks, target search terms that people are searching for, create content that gets shared online and becomes the source for other sites. So that way you can start collecting backlinks, and then also focus on what works and double down. So what we've seen working on a variety of businesses through different phases in market is that growth from SEO is a cyclical process. They go through a phase of steps that we also, as consultants, take people through. A research phase where you're going to find your keywords, your customers, your market. A development phase where you're going to build your product, your website, your landing pages. A writing phase where you're going to create content to attract people to the site and fill out your web pages. And then a sharing phase where you're going to distribute your content, which is possibly the most important. And then a reporting phase to see how did your efforts improve the sort of visual of your site, and then repeat that process again from what you've learned.
I don't know what
And
to do.
we've seen
I have like so many things to do.
Spend sort of change as people grow. So really, as your site continues to grow, you end up having to spend more. The number of pages increase, the number of spend increases, the number of people you hire increases, the spend increases, right? So as we see this process repeated enough times, the spend increases with the growth. The larger the website, the more money. And so this is where we see sort of the 5 stages of a startup and how that relates to SEO. So for seed startups, keyword and market research is vital to go-to-market strategy. Additionally, competitor data is going to provide insights on gap and opportunity. So with sort of lighter resources as a seed startup, we would suggest all-in-one tools like SEMrush, and then also free tools like Google Data Studio to provide reporting, because really you want to try to get to market as fast as possible and demonstrate product market fit, rank for your branded traffic, start building that brand recognition, and then develop with a website framework that can scale. Several times, people will just pick something that they can get started with, but then it doesn't necessarily scale. And then they have to, down the line, reinvest in a CMS that's going to work for them and their business. And then once you've sort of moved on, collected more money, more business, then you're an early stage startup. The most important thing to focus on is establishing a strong cash flow. So with decades of experience in SEO, we've seen that strong correlation between evergreen content and cash flow. So at this point, you would want to start investing in content writers, empower them with more keyword research tools, and help them create content faster with content brief tools. So at this point, you would want to be building content, product, resources, start ranking for unbranded terms, and then develop tags and taxonomies as you start to understand how people search, so you can send them to specific sections of your website. So really, this is where like information architecture starts to take hold. Then you would go into a growth phase where you start to develop your team. You start figuring out processes for growth, scaling out horizontally. So this is when you can start stealing keywords and visibility away from incumbents or people who own your vertical. You can train and optimize your team. You can close the gap between competitors and really start earning dollars. And then once we head into expansion, we are going to start to allocate equity strategically. We want to get smarter about how we use the backlinks that we've collected over time and improve internal linking strategies, build SEO topic clusters. So we are writing about, we have a larger set of articles about one specific topic, and then just generally improving website experience. And then lastly, as you get to the exit stage, it's likely that your website is suffering from spaghetti code, broken backlinks, vestigial artifacts from a previous time. And we work with a lot of these. So we do a lot of work with recovering backlinks from broken pages, cleaning broken sections of a site, which would have been, 10 iterations of this loop earlier, and then reducing friction and waste. So as you can sort of follow this, there's different focal points. Just like as you're running your startup, you're focusing on different things. SEO sort of follows the same trend. So let's dig into some specifics of the cycle. So maybe you can identify where you're at, where you can go forward.
And Colt, before we dive into this, one thing I do want to say is that there's a lot of overlap between what we do in search and what we do in social. a lot of when you're looking to identify the content that's going to work in both channels, you're really just trying to use the voice of the customer through the frame of keyword research, whether you're doing that keyword research in a social listening tool or you're doing it in a Google tool. It's the same sort of mechanism that you would use or approach you might use to determine what people are going to want. So what Colt's going to walk you through here is going to apply to any social content that you do as well.
Yeah, I'm generally focused on organic, but you can definitely drop in some of the strategies straight into social and, you know, TikTok, Twitter. So through this research phase, we are going to want to find your audience, which is going to define your personas, and your personas are going to help define your keywords for your keyword research. And then your keywords are going to help you find your competitors in each marketplace. Because sometimes you might compete with an incumbent's, like just a product line, but you are doing it niche, you're doing it better, you're doing it small, faster. So you might compete with just a specific vertical. So really keyword research around competitors is essential. And then we want to find how you compare against those competitors in the SERPs. So this is really where we want to find the who, the how they search, the who they're finding, and then how often they're finding them. And needing more tools and data is a function of business growth. So as we spend more, that's probably a good thing because that probably means that the company is worth more, valued more. So here's a set of tools that are used for audience research. So we want to know, where does your audience spend their time? SparkToro is a great tool for that. You can also find your audience on specific sites like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Reddit for what do they talk about. LinkedIn is great for where do they work, and then what are their interests. Can be pulled up from sort of the Facebook research and also Google Customer Match. And then we can go through sort of a social graph analysis to see, you know, who knows who in LinkedIn or who's following who in Twitter. You can do cohort research. You can do platform advertising data. You can get data expansion from a service like Clearbit, and then experience reporting and market research surveys, which are very big for talking to your customers. So this is really the first step. Anytime that you're starting a new project, you're going to want to dive in and start building a case for your strategy. And then once we have some research on audience, then we know how to go to market with our keywords. And these tools would be SEMrush, Moz, Ahrefs, Google Trends, Answer the Public, Google Search Console, main Google Search Stat. There's a million of them. These were some of the big ones. And it's really, we want to answer what phrases does your audience use for search? Which term most effectively describes your product? What is the potential of growth from your organic search? And we want to find the questions that they're asking, what sort of phrases that they're using, and then what sort of people's, places, or things are they referencing. That would be entities for anyone who's in the SEO space. So for research into competitors, certain services provide better insights into how competitors are ranking. You don't ever have their data specifically, so we have to run some sort of third-party analysis to try to guesstimate how your competitor is competing against you. So we want to try to find how they're ranking, what they're ranking for, where they're getting backlinks from, who's linking to them, where they have social presence through a tool like BuzzSumo, and then what they're doing with their ad spend. And that sort of competitive insight really gives you a strategy on how to beat them. And then we finally look at the SERPs, the search engine result pages. So for our keywords, what do the search results look like? What is our average position? And alternatively from average position, we sometimes want to measure how far down by pixels your result is on the page, because you might see a result that is 4 ads and a map, and you might be the first ranking, but you're not even above the fold. So, you know, first position doesn't necessarily mean that you're first position. But these tools are SEMrush, Stat, Ahrefs, Nozzle, Rank Rater, Night Watch. There's quite a few of these as well. So I would do a little market research into this and find one that you like or that resonates with you. However, it's extremely valuable to know what you're ranking for and where your competitor ranks against you. And then you can also go out and get raw data. There are a set of APIs that are provided from some of these vendors, like RepWords has keyword data. SEMrush has a full suite of data, Ahrefs has a full suite, and then Data for SEO is a contender for cheaper data. So now that we sort of know how we're going to go to market, we wanted to start developing that into our sites. And so this is, sort of where you start asking yourself, do we build or buy? How much data do you need to own? What do you need to control? What's the risk of managing your own site? What's the risk of not managing your own site? And then what sort of custom features are you going to need? So you have basically three options. A platform as a service, which is going to be low technical barrier, but a higher recurring cost because they're going to be managing your site for you. You'll have a moderate pool of developers, and then you most likely will not be able to do any sort of core feature development. And then frameworks like WordPress, there's a lower technical barrier or low technical barrier, but not as low as platform as a service, but lighter costs, but you will have to spend on hosting plugins. You're going to have a huge number of developers. WordPress is one of the largest platforms, CMSs on the internet. And then you can
the largest.
It
it's
is
like 40% of the web.
Yeah, WordPress owns the web. And core feature development is mostly possible. You can extend on it. And then custom development, you're going to have, that should say high technical barrier, because it is, it's going to be, you're going to need an engineer. You will have to spend up front for that engineer, and then you're going to have to hire some sort of specialist as you go along. And there's going to be less developers than WordPress would have. But you have the biggest opportunity for custom features there. And if you're on this call, it's probably likely that you are sort of have some custom development going on anyways, but it's worth talking about. So here's sort of the spread of options, and we tend to find the sweet spot for SEO is right here, because usually developers in the custom development space are not focused on SEO, and usually these platforms are, since you can't edit core features, you can't do some of the advanced SEO recommendations that we tend to recommend. So effectively, the framework is the easiest place for us to make changes, to get developers to get work done. And then there's also a concern about implementing multiple hosted tools. So the biggest SEO mistakes that we see when developing a new product set is you might have a ton of subdomains for like developer documentation, Q&A support, like Zendesk always ends up on a subdomain. Your storefront might end up on a subdomain, your blog. And a big issue that we see is that subdomains are not as effective as subfolders. So oftentimes we'll have to recommend that people migrate into a subfolder, which can be difficult to do when you have all of these different disparate CMSs that are each managing one small part of your site, and you're really breaking apart your authority by doing that. So just a couple of examples of sort of a sweet spot of moderate control with lighter maintenance and a higher developer availability. For a shop, you might want WooCommerce, Shopify, Magento, WordPress as a content warehouse, and then you can use a reverse proxy to get separate sites to subfolders. If you wanted to go for a light solution, you could do a static generated site and then use Snipcart for product sales. And then for a headless CMS like Contentful, you could do a server-side rendered framework like Next.js.
One thing I want to call out is if you try the reverse proxy thing with Shopify, you're gonna have a bad time because they're gonna throttle that real quick. I know because I did it and I lost a lot of everything from doing it.
I didn't actually know about that one. You'll have to You have to educate me. Yeah, you can have issues with reverse proxying. If you're reverse proxying like a domain that someone else owns, or like a product as a service, and then they change URL settings, you're basically going to take down the site with the proxy. So what does your CMS need to succeed at SEO? I think we goofed up that slide. I'm gonna skip it. You guys didn't see that. So your site's going to need a robots.txt. This is going to inform the search engine which URL the crawler can access, right? For I think it was Shopify just added this feature, which is insane because this is a core SEO feature that hasn't been supported, which is exactly the risk of going with some of these hosted services. They're just not supported by SEO. And then we need to implement sitemaps. So a sitemap is a file that sort of provides directions to get to all other files or all other site URLs in the site. And having minute control over this is extremely helpful because there's all sorts of optimizations you can do around this. Let's say that you're migrating your site. You would want to have a sitemap for both the old version of the site and the new. Or if you have millions of URLs, ooh, we're getting questions. What about Wix for SEO? Is it optimized? They're getting better. It's not as bad as it used to be, but you just don't have the control that you generally want.
Don't do it.
I was trying to take a more positive spin.
I would recommend that you use, at minimum, a WordPress rather than a Wix. You're just going to get far more control. You're going to have the ability, excuse me, to, you can use like builders and things like that, although I don't necessarily recommend those either. But you can have the same sort of functionality that you have in Wix, where it's like you don't have to be a developer to use it. So I definitely recommend WordPress over Wix. I've not used Webflow because there's someone asking about that as well. But I just trust that because Colt put it where he put it, it's probably not going to be much better than Wix.
It's actually my favorite sort of product or platform as a service site builder because they adopt HTML features faster than anyone else. So they are trying, however, they just can't give you the fine-tuned control that sometimes we want. And that really
One
shows
other thing
itself
I
with the
wanted,
sitemaps. Yeah, go ahead, John.
yeah, one thing I also wanted to call out with sitemaps that we didn't go through here is that depending on your business or what you're doing, if you're creating, videos or images, you can create sitemaps for them, which can again be helpful for basically getting this content crawled, indexed, and ranking, which is kind of the whole point of all of this.
Yeah, and I mean, not to sort of toot WordPress's horn too much, but the Yoast and Rank Math plugins are very good for sort of building all of that for you. It takes a lot of work away from development or lack of development from some of the platforms as a service. Additionally, we're going to need to implement some schema markup. So this is also called JSON LD or microdata. And this is going to inform sort of the unstructured content and tell Google this is, what it's about, how you can use it in your search engine. So this is going to inform videos, recipes, FAQs, just any number news, I think, right? Yeah. I mean, I know it's news. I'm just trying to think of more off the top of my head. But there's just so many sort of extra features that you can win at by using semantic HTML and schema.org snippets.
Yeah,
so
the
this,
SERPs are, oh, sure, go.
No, go ahead, John.
I was just say SERPs are not just 10 links anymore. They're a lot of different types of semantics, whether it be questions, related searches, all of that information. A lot of the time, schema.org, you can basically help to get ranked for those terms. So building out your site, making sure you're using the right tags for the right entity or topic can be very beneficial for ranking.
Yeah, CTR giving a +1 for Yoast. And that's another thing that Yoast does is it implements some of the schema markup for you just right off the bat. I didn't know this was going to become a Yoast talk, but here we are.
I prefer Yoast over rank math, just saying. Is there a way to not use robots.txt when using Shopify? I think they natively create one for you no matter what. It's just that they allow you control over it now. So again, like Colt was saying, in the recent months, I'm going to say in the last like 3 to 6 months, they rolled out the ability to control it yourself. Prior to that, you just didn't have any control over it.
If you, I don't know why you wouldn't want a robots.txt, but you could just leave it blank. But you should use your robots.txt. Okay, so next, this is basically the general how-to for on-page SEO. This is a good reference, and it's just everything that sort of we want to fill out as we go along. So that would be page titles, meta descriptions, social media tags, which is open graph and Twitter cards. Those are the little graphics that pop up if you like share a tweet or link to something and it shows the preview of the content. Headings, which are used as heavier weights for search. So if you are using keywords in headings, oftentimes they are more likely to rank. And then links, what is the anchor text? What is the, are they follow, no follow? Is it a sponsored link? Google is really checking all of that. And then are they pointing internally to other links in your site or externally? Core web vitals, which is a big thing as of the last 6 months. How fast is your site? Which is another thing that all of these like Wix or Squarespace or Webflow platforms are trying to address, but you don't necessarily have control over, is how fast is their site. And then crawl and indexing with robots.txt, sitemaps, optimization, redirects. So those are all of the sort of checklist things to make sure that your platform can do. And then we head into the writing cycle. So now that our content is, or our site is semantically correct, and we have been arbiters of a good website, good web denizens, then we want to start writing content, and that would be, do you hire or outsource? What are some common frequently asked questions? Are there opportunities to leverage sort of local content versus regional broad content? Can you create better content than your competitors? And then what is the problem that your product or service solves? So my rule about content is sort of an 80-20 rule. It's a take on the Pareto principle. So 80% of websites suffer from not having enough diverse content, and 20% of that content will send 80% of the traffic. So what we really need to do is have a broad set of sort of content to find that 20% that's going to send the whale share of the traffic. So really, I would want to spend 80% of my search marketing budget towards content, especially in the beginning. And then there are tools to speed up content creation by about 80%, and they can take up less than 20% of your total marketing budget. So based on this rule, which is just a lot of broad reaching, I would say that there's a lot that you can do with content, and it is a great target. As we build our content team, you can see that you're going to start needing, different people to really build it out. In the beginning, you might just need a single writer, but then you can start getting into a content strategist, developer, designer. Then you might need specific writers, a marketing coordinator, an analyst to, inform some of this, and then get into an editor or project manager. So you can really expand out a content team to the point where it can eat up that $1 million budget. And what they're going to want to be paying attention to, like I mentioned before, is headings. So H1 through 6, paragraph tags, and then bold tags. And then type of content that you'll want to be looking at. Blog posts, of course, short form, evergreen, long form articles, photo and visual galleries, detailed informational posts, category landing pages, guides, data related, and video. And then you can look at local or regional content. So building out specific pages for cities, states. You don't necessarily want those to be templated because Google will have an issue with that. So you want to build unique, diverse content for each location. But really you want to build a content strategy around what works for your business objectives. So some brief writing tools, these are, as I mentioned, not necessarily all of your marketing costs, but really extremely helpful. I would look into ClearScope, MarketMuse, Surfer Phrase. These two up top are more enterprise, but I would suggest these bottom two as solid options for younger startups. You'll also want to try to do quarterly content audits. So we want to look at what's old, what's new, what should be updated, what should be edited, what should be modified. And then there's this idea of creating hub and spoke content. So we sort of find a general broader topic to create a strong piece of content about, and then we can break that down into smaller articles that we can discuss and dive deeper into. And then you internally link across those to build this sort of cluster of unique content that is going to bring people to your website. Whew, I'm getting I need a drink.
Adult beverage?
It is 10 for us here. It is time for an adult beverage. So as we create content, we're going to head into sort of our share phase. So sharing is a key part of this strategy. Getting people early and often to new content is helpful, as well as the backlinks that you can accumulate from that content. So you want to get people onto the page before they find it naturally, organically through search. So you would want to create a weekly newsletter that could be shared, and a way to build backlinks as well as signups. Also, it's an own platform for you, so I would suggest email marketing for everyone, because instead of like Facebook or TikTok, where it's their platform, email marketing is yours. And then also leverage your knowledge of your niche and promote. Podcasts are becoming increasingly popular. We do one. It's called Rankable. Check it out. So you can start with video. This is what we're seeing a lot of, is that people are going to YouTube first, and then they are taking the YouTube content and just extracting the audio and then creating podcasts out of that. And that is essentially what we've been doing. And then build landing pages for each of the episodes. You can target keywords with the clips and do like best of content. So this is like a highly recyclable piece of content. Mike.
Yeah, and to that point, this is another place where there's a lot of overlap between what you do in organic search and what you're doing in social, no matter what the channel is, right? Like if you're thinking about TikTok, you're thinking about Instagram, you're thinking about Facebook, YouTube, so on, you can repurpose all this content in a variety of ways, like Colton's saying. But the thing to really know is that all of these channels have formats of their own. So it's not good enough for you to just take your horizontal video and throw it onto TikTok, because that's not going to work. That's not what that channel is for. You got to make sure that you're adhering to what that channel requires. So if you're going to repurpose that video, make sure your subject is in the middle, so then you can crop the sides out and use it on TikTok. So that's just the key thing that you need to know about, the overlap between search and social, specifically for this type of content, especially when you're thinking about video. How do we prepare it once so we can use it in a variety of places?
We do that a lot. Like if you're thinking about, we call it 10x content, but basically what do you want to build your business around? What sort of hill is worth dying on? And then you build this giant evergreen piece of content, do video for it, and then start figuring out how you can break that apart into smaller articles. And then how do you break those apart into small videos, small episodes, and you can really fragment things out and start owning an entire space. So a lot of Another thing that we do a lot of work with is infographics. So you research a topic, take a deep dive into it, develop concept, design it, revise it, and then start outreaching with that content because it has high share value. They are likely to go viral and likelier. And then you want to send that through Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. Data is Beautiful is a popular channel. And then you can also align these with events or holidays. So, if you're an e-commerce business and you were just targeting Black Friday, Cyber Monday, then that would be a perfect time to sort of create some data, create an infographic that is visual, exciting, and spread that.
One thing I want to call out on that, Colt, actually interesting, on Black Friday, Shopify had a really fascinating visualization of the earth and orders. And it was a way for them to almost tell the story and see other people sharing it, realizing, oh yeah, like all these other stores are on their platform and these are the orders. So, you can build and kind of focus to what your product may be touching on. So something like a Black Friday, or a big holiday, but it doesn't necessarily need to be kind of the main topic.
Yeah, that was a great one. That was a great micro site. So another great way is free tools. So you could build a little simple tool or application. So an example that John had was that if you're selling keyboards, you could build a speed typing tool, which I love. You could sort of get a new keyboard and see if it helps you with typing at all. You could also do a leaderboard, make it shareable, make it gamified. And then also a food delivery service. You could build a weekly meal planning tool. I guess Eat This Much does that. One thing that I was sort of talking about today is the idea of side project marketing, where you build something as a side project, just a free tool that people can love and share because people love free. And it doesn't even have to be on your site. It could be a separate brand, but in the footer, you just mentioned this was built by, my brand, and that has brought in huge successes for other businesses.
That also allows you to rank for multiple sites for the same keyword or term, depending on what you're going after, and can help do different type of backlink strategies across multiple domains if you own different brands or platforms.
Yeah, you won't necessarily cannibalize yourself with yourself. So then for reporting, here's an example measurement strategy. So a lot of stuff can get filtered through Google Tag Manager, which is a great tool to implement, and then Google Analytics as sort of the primary traffic observation. And then an example of rank tracking would be Stat. And then you can also feed in SEMrush data and Google Search Console data. And all of this can end up in Google Data Studio with their connectors. So you can create some incredible reporting with all of these suite of tools, which can all get connected in with not much work. And you can have a very effective measurement strategy based on the set of free tools and the smaller set of paid tools. And then, let's say that that's not your stack. Here's some options for analytics to track users and their journeys. Google Analytics, which I'm a fan of, and Adobe Analytics, which I'm less of a fan of, but we use it often. And then Privacy First Analytics, which I'm not seeing much of, but Fathom, that's run by Paul Jarvis, who's a very good dude. And secondary user journey analytics like Mixpanel and Amplitude. For just broad data insights, what are people searching for? I would look at Google Search Console and SEMrush. That is just sort of great connectors straight into Google Data Studio. And then if you want to watch your site and how it's doing, is it up, is it down, what's changing, you can use Uptime Robot, check your Content King. Content King is specific for SEO, and it's a pretty nice little tool that will check to see sort of what's changed on your site, specifically down to the element. And then for SERP monitoring, Stat and Nozzle. And then, of course, reporting and business intelligence. Google Data Studio is free, Tableau is paid, Looker is more enterprise, and then Apache Superset is open source. And Domo is also a good mid-market option. And then repeat. So as we sort of work through this process, you might go through this process once when you are a small seedling, and then as you enter into growth, you are going to do it again, and then you're going to do it again when you enter into the next phase. So we've seen this sort of cycle a few times as a microcycle. So our agency projects or epic sprints have a contracted start date and end date. And those are opportunities for a full microcycle. So we'll start all of these with the research, which will then slide into sort of the technical SEO or the development phase, and then content. And then we share that, and then we report on it. And that is essentially what we do through a full project. And then you also see this in a macro cycle. So as you grow, there's inevitably going to be things that really change the way that you do business. So you might introduce a new CMS, a new product line, you might get new leadership staff, and each of them are going to bring their big ideas to the table. And then you're going to have to see this process happen again. So what if we had $1 million? John, do you want to talk us through your use case?
So I kind of want to give an example of going through like a cold beverage drink container, think of it like a BrewMate or something like that. And so like, if this was your product, like, how would you build out your site and content and do focusing on SEO? So the first one was to start with Shopify, build out, an optimized theme that has all the different types of on-page elements that you can with different customizations. Take 250K and start focusing on your evergreen blog content, product showcase, targeting different frequently asked questions about your product, and leveraging SEO tools. So in this case, we did a 50K spend. So the idea here is that you would sign up, be able to do your keyword research, focus on your terms, find your competitors, and start, building out some other content that will drive. And then the two biggest kind of costs here is the outreach and videos. The idea here would be to do different weekly contest giveaways. And so you could think of being able to drive to an email newsletter, or being able to capture, every week we give away, 10 of these things, and you get, 1 entry per email or something like that. And you can also do other types of video product showcasing. We're talking about doing TikTok or different types of content video. There's different, influence markers that can link back to, SEO. So much of this stuff is just building backlinks and content. So yeah.
Boom. So my fantasy business is fidget products for anxiety. So spinner rings or fidget spinners. There's also these little cubes that you can sort of fidget. Wait, hold up. I got one. You can click it. So I would do a 50K on a WordPress and WooCommerce site. That's still pricey, but I cut John's in half. Thought I'd go a little bit cheaper. And I would go 500K in on blog posts, product showcase, holiday gift giving, and then 50K on SEO tools. And you really don't have to spend that much, but $1 million is a lot of spend. And then 300,000 on outreach and giveaway and contests, and sort of the social aspect. Really what we're talking about is link building there. We wanted to try to acquire as much link equity as possible. And then 50K for video, testimonials, influencers. And then also I would want to try that side project marketing. So to try to give us, let's say that you build like a fidget website where there's just a bunch of buttons that you could click. I would actually love that. I would play with that all day. Just little noises like a soundboard.
Can you add some sort of Konami code thing to that?
Yeah, a little up, up, down, down. I don't know. Yeah. So what if you don't have $1 million? You only have $1,000. That's actually a lot more realistic budget than $1 million. Usually our clients end up somewhere in between those two numbers. So let's say that you have $1,000 per month for SEO. I would spend $50 on Surfer and Nozzle each. So Nozzle is a rank tracker that is very good and isn't as expensive as some of the enterprise options. I would also get Surfer, which is the content platform, for $50 a month, and then SEMrush for $99 a month. And then you can get the full Google reporting suite for free. And then I would spend the other $800 to get someone writing content. You'll have to manage that person and you'll have to run the tools. However, this is probably a really effective way to get your site off the ground.
I just want to call out the Google Search Console. If you have not signed up for that, like, please do so now. Like, that data, you basically get the rolling 16 months of data, and it goes away every day. So you really should make sure you have access to that for all of your web properties.
Fun fact though, if any of y'all are using GCP, I don't know if you are, but if you are, you can use Google Cloud Workflows to kind of store that data pretty easily. And John has actually shared a script on how you do it as well. So if you end up downloading the assets that we have later on, we can send that to you too.
Cool. So I'm just going to make the case for an agency because we're an agency and we need to sell you something. We don't have to. Mike is laughing at my own terrible take on sales. So as an agency, sort of the benefits that we tout is that we have a developed and production ready team like myself who understands a large set of verticals. And then you get an economy of scale. So we are working on a bunch of clients basically pretty effectively. And so you're not necessarily having to pay that person's entire salary. And then tools are already in place and available for use. So we are using all of these tools all of the time. And then you have access to experts who have diverse experience, and then you end up with a contracted period. So really you can define a start and end of the project, and then you have access to multiple people instead of just one person for the price of one person. There are benefits to hiring an employee though. You get fine-tuned control of hiring, and you'll get higher internal communications, and then you will have a resident knowledge base, which can be handy. Having someone who has worked within a space and has back knowledge is extremely helpful. And then you get exclusive focus from that employee. So it's really up to you how you sort of want to manage and grow your team and scale things. Most people do end up doing a little bit of both. They'll have their internal team as well as an agency. But want to know more about how the biggest spenders are winning at SEO? So we have a book on the modern approach to enterprise content strategy. It's 70 plus pages, and you can go check out how some of these enterprise experts are repping brands, major brands, and that would be at, I'm missing the URL for that. Oh no. Hold on.
I'll drop it in the chat.
Yeah, please do. And that's what we have for you. We only got 2 questions, so if you guys want to ask us questions about the original site title or the original presentation title, can you recommend any sources to find part-time content writers? Mike, where do we source from? That's I'm blanking on the name.
Yeah, we actually we have our own network of writers, but there's a variety of different companies out there that you can leverage, like Composely, CopyPress. Who else comes to mind? There's like Skyward. It all depends on the level of quality that you're looking for. And you could also just go the route of, looking out on some of these sites like your Upworks of the world. And what I would recommend if you use any of those is really spend the time to vet these people, because it really just comes down to, are they going to be able to do what you need to do? And you're going to need someone who has some level of subject matter expertise in order to get effective content out of
Now, can I get a commentary on Fiverr?
it. I thought you wanted to keep this positive.
Oh, my bad, my bad.
Go ahead.
Yeah, somebody's got their hand up. Ryan O'Sullivan, do you have a question?
Hey guys, thanks for taking the time. It's definitely helpful. I'm with the company Ignotica, and we're a B2B financial service. For our clients are insurance companies. So I know a lot of times SEO is focused on B2C, but what's your take on a B2B play? And are all the concepts the same, or are there differences? Are there nuances within it?
So I actually disagree with you when you say that a lot of SEO or most SEOs focus on B2C. We do plenty of B2B SEO stuff for folks. And the thing that I think is different is really just kind of baked into our approach, because like what Cole is saying here is we leverage personas as part of what we're doing. So we're always looking to see or understand the user behind the visit. So at the end of the day, all of our work is human to human. It doesn't matter if you're B2B or B2C or what have you. And so what we're thinking about is what the user journey is, what the buyer journey looks like, and making sure that we're aligning the right keywords with the right content so that we can have the right resources that these people look for when they search. Now, when you think of, like, let's just talk about our use case as an agency, right? We create a lot of content for those different stages. So for instance, we've got this content strategy ebook, which is a upper funnel piece of content. And then we've got things that are lower funnel, like case studies and so on. And there's always going to be a series of keywords that make more sense for each of those pieces of content. And they're going to reflect what it is that the person's actually doing. So as an example, if you're thinking about someone who's trying to find an agency, it's not always like the CMO that's looking for it. It can be, a marketing manager who's giving something to the VP of marketing, who then gives something to the CMO. And so we've got to have content assets for all those different types of people, for all those different types of stages, so that we can capture them where they are in their journey. And then we can go ahead and nurture them to where we want them to go. So it definitely aligns directly with doing B2B. But what I'm saying is that the approach that we kind of outlined here can work for either B2B or B2C.
As far as the play goes, oftentimes in the user journey, there's a long research step for B2B. And so that's where like Forrester Wave or G2 comes in, or oh no, I'm blanking on the other one. The Square. But anyways, they're going to be doing a lot more research and comparison. So what you can do is write that content, that comparison content, to say, here's how we stack up against this competitor. Here's how we stack up against this one. If you want a good example of that, HubSpot is basically doing that against like 30 different competitors extensively. So I would check that.
Gold standard is Zapier. Their whole strategy was that, like, they either have like comparison content, or they have like, use this API with this API, like that type of content. So yeah, there's a lot of good examples of people doing stuff like that and being able to capture people all across the funnel. All right, are there some, you want to say something?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Is there some ideal strategies for getting backlinks, or is it mostly organic and valuable content? So the thing about link building is, one, it's not easy. And two, the best way to scale it is going to be via content. And I'll give you this example. And I think I may have said this last year. I feel like I did, but I used to run marketing for a link building agency. And I had my marketing team, which was 10 people. And then we had the link building team, like the people that did the service that the agency offered. And there was over 100 people. And the same span of time, which was a year, my team generated 11,000 links, while the link building team generated 3,000 links. My team did zero outreach. All we did was content. That team did all outreach and guest posting and so on. So I say that to say that if you're looking for scale, it's always going to come from content creation. Now, once you've got the content in place, that can support a variety of things. It can support what's called broken link building, which is a good way to find scalable opportunities. So typically what you're doing is you're looking for people that have similar content assets to you, and you're looking for assets that no longer exist that still have a bunch of links to them. So let's say you find some sort of like buyer's guide or whatever that you have on your site that someone else had. They've got like 20 links pointing to them. You then just reach out to the websites that are linking to them and say, hey, you're linking to something that no longer exists. Why don't you link to ours instead? It's better. Another thing that you can do, which can yield a lot of passive high quality links, would be what's called like a state of piece of content. So, like let's say you're in financial services. Let's say you're doing mortgages. You could do like the state of home lending or something like that. And you can just like collect a bunch of data points, do some sort of interactive piece of content, and make it rank for keywords related to your space, especially ones that are going to be data driven. So then when journalists are writing about your vertical, what have you, they're going to come across this and they're going to link to it. And it's also something that's going to work quite well for outreach, especially if you can make some data points like location specific. Then you can reach out to local newspapers and so on, and then capture a whole bunch of links that way. And then that's also an asset that you can update year over year or quarter over quarter and continue to get more links from. So yeah, really it's going to be the content that's going to work really well. And then you just got to figure out which content or which tactics align best with the content that you have. There's a website called Backlinko, a gentleman named Brian Dean. He took over this very large list of link building tactics from another gentleman super sharp in his space named John Cooper. I'd recommend you check that out and just kind of align that with the content that you have. And then you'll just have a bunch of tactics that are pretty easy to use. Next question.
Yeah, if nobody else has a question, then I'm going to ask a question.
Please do.
All right. Well, maybe if you guys don't mind opening it up a little bit. Yeah, one of the things that kind of highlighted maybe the topic discussion that I was having with Garrett was they showed that Google was in talks to index Instagram and TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, do you think that it would have a similar kind of SEO? Certainly not the same as YouTube since it's a Google product itself, but do you think that there's potential for SEO and TikTok and Instagram if it's going to be indexed in a way that may be similar to YouTube?
Yes and no, because those are short form videos. And in a lot of those videos, nothing is being said. So end of the day, Google is even with the YouTube videos, you may be seeing more and more that they are dropping you in a specific place in the video based on your query. Mm-hmm. If there's nothing to say, there's no way to know where to drop somebody, right? Because what they're doing is they're doing speech to text and then using where that word or series of words are said, and then they're saying like, okay, this is the point that I want you to go to. And they're also able to understand what the video is about. So I think if you're doing TikTok videos where you're talking or Instagram reels and things like that, where you're talking and you have something to say that's going to be relevant to your keywords, then yeah, that's going to be an opportunity. Otherwise, it's just going to be kind of the equivalent of image search where, if they're able to associate the imagery in your video with keywords, then yeah, it can certainly rank. But otherwise, you're going to have to look at things just like it's metadata, like what is being said in the captions and things like that. So I don't know that's going to necessarily be a huge opportunity for most of the like popular TikTok and Instagram videos, but it is a potential opportunity if they index it in the same way that they do YouTube.
There's a weird thing going on where you look for a TikTok trend and you end up on a news article about the new TikTok trend. And so they're probably just trying to circumvent that and send you straight to what you're actually looking for instead of ending up on some like ad-filled site.
Okay, so that you think TikTok is trying to keep other people from stripping away their users, right, to these other places.
Yeah, it would be great just to go straight to exactly what you're looking for, which is Google's mission.
But I think also the point that Mike made just now makes a lot of sense to me, that if you add a layer of content, i.e. the spoken word, to your video, then that's something that ideally, or likely is going to be able to transcribe, and therefore something that maybe the search engines would be able to understand.
There was a great Verge article on an Excel TikTok who did like different types of Excel hacks and tricks. And I feel like there's layers to be able to leverage that content in other ways, not just through TikTok, but to build out kind of targeting those FAQ questions or common things like how to make a pivot table, right? But whatever it is for your niche.
Right on. Okay, well, as I see that there are no more additional questions, and I don't want to monopolize the speakers. Oh, we got another one. How important is pro copywriting?
Super. So, and that's why I mentioned the concept of quality. Search engines are, the way I think about content is that search engines learn from the content that they've already indexed and ranked. And so if your content doesn't have the features of that content, whether that's vocabulary, depth, and so on, you're not going to really have the opportunity to rank as well as you might like. It used to be a lot easier to just throw anything up, have it keyword targeted, build a bunch of links to it, and voila, you now rank. And it doesn't really matter what the content was actually about, as long as you had enough, anchor text driven links to those pages. And Google's just far more sophisticated at this point. So, there's just a lot of natural language processing concepts that have kind of caught up to what a good writer sounds like when they're writing and so on. So it's worth it to spend the money on somebody who's really good at writing and also really understanding, or really like an expert on the subject. So don't cut corners.
Awesome. I think that should be the last question, unless somebody's going to sneak in again as I try to say goodbye like they did last time. Let's see. Oh, is anybody going to question bomb me? All right. Well, if nobody's going to question bomb me, then it's time to put our virtual hands together, or you can unmute yourselves and say thank you to Colt, John, and Mike from iPullRank. Again, they've got lots of great content there, video on the site. They shared some of that in the chat, so please go through that. But hopefully you guys in this session were really able to get, especially like a technical background on SEO, how to move forward if you have $1 million budget, or how to move forward if you have $1,000 budget. There were options there for all of you. Just a reminder that after this session, we have another session starting at 1:30 Taipei, Singapore, Shanghai time. So we will be looking forward to seeing you back then. But for now, everybody join me and putting together your hands and say thank you, and allow the speakers to go get a nice frosty beverage, okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us, y'all. Have a good one.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again, Mike. Much appreciated.
Of course.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Cole.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.